Hello and welcome to Sharon Gardens. Thank you guys so much for joining me. So in today's video, I wanted to take a walk around the garden and share with you guys what plants and flowers are continuing to bloom here through the heat of the summer and share some information about those plants as well. So with that, let's go take a walk and see what we've got. All right, you guys, so I thought I'd start where I just recently planted some seeds, and I have my morning glory here that's blooming. It is one of the first blooms, but I've got a lot of buds here on the plant, and that will be blooming very, very soon. They'll all be opening up, but I just started these from seed probably maybe about a month ago, and this is just so pretty. I absolutely love morning glory. Now, one thing about morning glory is it does tend to reseed itself, or I found that anyway, and I'll show you guys where it's sprouting up in a couple of locations that I haven't had it actually planted in years, but I am leaving them this year, so I'll share that with you guys here in just one moment as well. And here I have another pot. This is with my sunflowers. Again, this is something that I just planted about a month ago. So I really got kind of started on my seed plantings a bit late this summer, but they are just starting to bloom. They look so pretty. There's lots of little buds here. There's another bee joining us, but we have lots of buds here, and so this is really going to have a lot of blooms in the next, I would say, probably week or two. And these were so easy to plant, you guys. I just laid out the seed to the depth that the package said, and then kept them moist, not overly wet, while they were growing in, and that's it. They did the rest themselves. So this was very, very easy to grow from seed, as well as the morning glory that I just showed you. This is a rose of Sharon. Oh, we have a bee that decided to join us. But this is the rose of Sharon, Lavender Chiffon. This is a plant that I planted last year, and it has been blooming quite a bit. Take a step back here and you can see there's a lot of different buds on here. It's been blooming profusely for, I would say, at least a good month. Now, the Lavender Chiffon is rated for hardiness USDA zones 5 through 9, and it grows 8 to 12 feet tall and 4 to 6 feet wide and blooms in the summer. So it looks like we have a hornet joining us. That's a little scary looking, but this is the summer lasting coconut crepe myrtle, which is a full sun and a smaller size crepe myrtle. This gets to 3 feet tall and wide and blooms in the summer in USDA zones 7 through 10. Now, I really like this crepe myrtle. I love that pop of white and the darker colored leaves, and really think it looks nice too against the darker colored stained fence behind it. And then to the right, if you guys see that, that is the lavender. That's that bright green. So I think it all kind of combines nicely together. I am so thrilled that this has been blooming in this heat and humidity and has continued to thrive. So that's very promising for this new plant. And this actually is planted in a rather large container. So I do have this in a large container and not in the ground, at least for now. So we'll continue to see if it thrives here. But as of right now, it's doing quite well. And I'm very happy with the placement and with its blooming this summer. The Vibe Ignition Fuchsia Salvia is also doing very well and continuing to bloom in the container that I planted in this year. I do have one of these planted in my perennial garden as well, and that's done very nicely, but it's also done very nicely in the container, which I'm very happy about. Now, this blooms spring to fall. It attracts hummingbirds and butterflies. It's rated for hardiness zones 7 through 11, and it reaches about 18 to 24 inches tall and wide. Now, this is an annual salvia that I have planted in the container, and as you can see, it is still blooming very, very nicely. I've got that paired with the Pentas over here, the white Pentas, and then down below, the Blew My Mind Dwarf Morning Glory, which I actually just saw at Home Depot last week and mentioned that in my Home Depot video that I posted last week as well. I'm really, really happy with the way this has turned out. I love having the purple paired with the white and then the bluish purple on the bottom. I just think that makes a very attractive container, and it's been blooming profusely all summer. This is my Capitan purple and white Dianthus. Now, I only have one blooming right now, but I do see several buds on this plant, so I think it's going to start up blooming here shortly. It hasn't been blooming a lot this summer. I think part of that is I probably should have moved it out of my container. It's a bit big for this container, but it is starting to bloom now, and my intention is to go ahead and move that in the fall to my perennial garden. but I am very excited that this has started blooming again, and this grows to a height of 12 to 18 inches and spreads 14 to 18 inches. So it's about time to either move it to another container or to go ahead and plant it in the perennial garden. But I did want to share it with you guys that it is marked to bloom from early spring to fall, and here it is just starting up again. So this is an annual that I'm actually very happy with that I did a video on a couple of weeks ago, and that is the Angelonia. I've got it in a couple of containers, and I'll put a link to that video below if you care to take a look. But this is the first year that I've planted it, and it is just continuing to shine and bloom and do so well with very little maintenance from me. So I've got that here, and I definitely wanted to mention it in this video, as well as it is continuing to bloom here at the end of August and just looks so pretty. And then of course I have my Pentas as well, which is also continuing to bloom in the containers that I've placed it in this year. One thing I did want to mention is, and it's something that I mentioned in my Home Depot video, this is Vinka that has bloomed in the ground below this pot here. And I did not plant Vinka this year, so this is actually from dropped seed last year, but it's just something that I wanted to point out to make sure to take a look around your containers and become familiar with those leaves, because you very well could have a valid plant that's growing right below your containers. Not only do I have this Vinka here, I also have some Porcelain, which is growing from drop seeds, and I've got several little plants that are growing here. I'll actually probably pull this one up and put it in a pot, but I'll show you guys a picture of it when it is open up during the day in the sun. But you can see I've got one here, I've got one here. They are just growing up all over the place, and these were not planted here. They were planted in the container above it. So they're popping up all over the place, as well as the Vinka. So it's just something to keep in mind when you are weeding and you're looking at your plants, is to try to recognize when you actually may have a valid plant from drop seeds, and you can just pick those up and put them in a container and they'll grow and then start blooming. See here, I have the same thing happening with morning glories. I don't think I've had morning glories planted over here in probably 2 or 3 years, but they dropped the seeds and they are growing up the fence, and I kind of just left them. Sometimes I may pull them if I don't want them where they're growing, or maybe try to transplant it. But in this instance, I decided to go ahead and leave it and just let it grow up the fence and see how it looked. So again, it's just something to keep in mind when you are weeding, and even when you're planting your plants, is really to try to familiarize yourself with the leaves so that you can recognize if it is a valid plant growing that's reseeded itself, or if it's just a weed that needs to be pulled. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. And here's the other Vinka that I mentioned that just randomly started growing. I don't even have Vinka planted anywhere around here, but it randomly started growing here. I recognized the leaf and just left it alone. So I'm going to pull that here shortly and probably put it in a pot. Now here I have my Rose of Sharon, which is continuing to bloom. I think it started about a month ago. The deer have also come through and snacked on this as well, but it continues to put out blooms, and I'm so thankful for that. The Rose of Sharon attracts butterflies and hummingbirds and bees, and just continues to bloom here in the heat of the summer. My garden phlox has continued to bloom, which has been absolutely great, and I expected nothing less than that from my garden phlox. This is from the transplants that I did when I divided last year. Now, it has been met with its share of adversity. I have had so much rabbit and deer activity in the garden this year, so they have certainly been eating these blooms. You can see to the right there that is chopped off. That was not deadheaded. That is from either a rabbit or a deer, but nonetheless, they have persevered and they just keep blooming and looking beautiful here at the end of August. Now, this is a newer plant for me that I just planted this year, and I've been very happy with it. This is the pink Skulpcap, which is a perennial, and it blooms late spring to early fall. These little blooms that they have here, the little pink blooms, they do look like little snapdragon blooms, but they are very, very small. I'll hold up my fingernails just so you guys can kind of get an idea of how tiny these are. This grows 12 to 18 inches tall and 24 to 36 inches wide, and it's heat and drought tolerant. and it has done very, very well. It's spread out nicely, which is exactly what I wanted, was a lower growing plant at the base of my perennial garden here, and it has performed very well. I am absolutely happy with this. I have not had any problem with the deer or rabbits eating it. This is one that they haven't bothered, so I wanted to share that with you guys. And I've been very pleased with this perennial and so happy that I added that to my perennial garden this year. All right, and then I have the very dependable drift rose. I've got several different colors of drift and shrub roses in my garden. These are so dependable, so easy to take care of. This one here is the Apricot drift rose, and it doesn't require deadheading. It blooms all summer along with my other drift and shrub roses, which I'll show you guys here in just one moment, but very, very dependable. I would say the only thing that I really have struggled with this year for the most part is deer coming through and knocking out my roses this year. So I've struggled. Luckily, these drift roses just continue to put out blooms, so it hasn't been that bad, but it has been a struggle this year for sure. But this is the apricot, and then I've got the red drift roses. I've got a couple of the red, and again, these have absolutely just bloomed all summer, starting in the spring, and have been so easy to maintain and care for. I absolutely love having these in the garden and love seeing this color throughout the summer. And then we have a lighter pink version as well. Unfortunately, I don't know the name of this one or exactly the color that's called. I've had it for a number of years, but again, just like the others, this has continued to bloom throughout the summer. This is the Sunrise Sunset Shrub Rose, and it's marked as fuss proof. And you guys, it absolutely has been. This is a shrub rose that I planted this year, and it has been absolutely wonderful. It has bloomed all summer long and has just been so easy to care for. I absolutely love the color here. This is marked for full sun. It gets 3 to 6 feet high and 4 to 7 feet wide, and it's just absolutely been so delightful and so easy to care for, and definitely is something that I have not regretted at all adding to my perennial garden. I'm so glad that I added this year. This is another perennial that has bloomed all summer long. This is my second summer actually having agastache in my garden, but this particular plant that I'm showing you here is a new addition for this year, and that is the Agastache Sunrise Violet. It has been another great perennial. As I mentioned, it has bloomed all summer long, and this grows 18 to 24 inches tall and 12 to 18 wide and attracts hummingbirds and butterflies. So it has been another great addition. See here, it's just got lots of little blooms. This is such a pretty plant, and I found it to be very, very low maintenance. And then we have the Verbina Homestead Purple, which is a great perennial. It has proven to be such a nice perennial. I actually planted one plant last year and had such great luck with it that I planted several this year. This is one of the newer plants, and you can just see how much it's spread. It has bloomed all summer long. Now this growth habit is spreading. It's sun to part shade and gets 6 to 12 inches tall and 18 to 24 wide in zones 6 through 10. I do have it planted in very well draining soil and it gets most sun, but it does get some protection in the afternoon, and has just been such a great perennial. It attracts both hummingbirds and butterflies and is deer resistant, which is just a great added benefit as well. Now my balloon flowers are plants that I've had absolutely for years, and these are very dependable and will continue to bloom. And see, one's going to open here, but it does look like a little balloon. I think they're so neat, but I've got these spread throughout the garden. And as I said, I've had them for years. They're very, very easy to maintain and very nice to see that pretty color here. And when so many things aren't blooming anymore, it's just so nice to see this color here at the end of August. Next, we have Speedwell, which has just been recently deadheaded, but is still continuing to bloom. I think this is only the second time that I've deadheaded it this summer. It has bloomed from spring and will continue to bloom. Now, Speedwell is a perennial that attracts hummingbirds and is deer resistant, which I can attest to because they have not bothered my Speedwell. It grows to a height of 4 to 12 inches and is just a very low maintenance perennial that I have thoroughly enjoyed having in my garden. Now, what I found surprising and what I didn't anticipate last year is that it actually remained evergreen through winter in my area. I don't know if that was an anomaly, but it did actually stay evergreen. It did not bloom through the winter, but it did stay evergreen. So I just wanted to mention that as well. That was something I was surprised about, and I will be on the lookout to see if it does that again this year. Now my liriope is also blooming, which I mentioned in last week's video as well, because I did see this available at my local Home Depot. I've had this for years, and I use this more for erosion control, and it's worked out very, very nicely. It's just a cost-effective way and low maintenance way for me to help control some of the erosion on a slight slope that I have in my perennial garden. Now what I like about these blooms is you can see here it's got that reddish purple stem with the purplish blue blooms, and then I love the variegated leaf of this variety of the liriope as well. So again, it's been a very cost-effective way and low maintenance way for me to control some erosion here in my perennial garden. Now all my butterfly bushes are definitely in full bloom and have been attracting those beautiful butterflies. This is fun. I've had it for years and years. I'm not even sure of the variety, but I love this purple coloration. These are very dependable, not only in blooming, but also in attracting so many butterflies, particularly in the late morning and afternoon. So I'll try to insert some pictures and video here just to show you guys how much activity this attracts from the butterflies. Then we have the Mexican petunias, which are blooming quite profusely. Now these will continue blooming generally in my area in Georgia, zone 7B, 8A, until usually the beginning of November. So it will bloom for quite some time with very little assistance from me. Now you guys, I have to show you the state of the zinnias, and they are looking beautiful. This is something that I go to time and again to plant, particularly in my front yard, because I just don't have to do a lot with them. They attract a lot of butterflies. And then I have the dwarf butterfly bush and the backdrop there. And this is just a very easy bed to maintain. And just look at these zinnias, all the different colors. Again, just profusely blooming with no assistance from me. And these will continue to bloom, I would say, generally into fall in my area. And I'll show you guys this pretty swallowtail that just landed on the butterfly bush, on the dwarf butterfly bush behind there. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I always enjoy sharing what plants are working out in the garden and sharing a little bit of information about those plants as well. So thank you for joining me again. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell so that you can be notified each time I upload a new video. All right, you guys, until next time, happy gardening and goodbye.